Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Who discovered 10 lobes of the human brain is a big question mark. And I've been very clearly talking in the last 22 videos who discovered things for the first time, starting from zero to step by step to nervous system and now to this as an applied science. Now I'm very clear in my mind, thoughts and consciousness. The world needs impeccable wisdom for every student throughout the world, uniform, without any deficiency. And I go on record again and again to say, having an experience of 70 years of education, I have realized the books available throughout the world, from primary school to middle school to high school to university to college to research, publication throughout the world. With respect to 4 subjects, I am not at all happy with. There is no divine mathematics, there is no divine physics, there is no divine chemistry, and no divine medical sciences which talk of the perfect anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and psychology, so that every human being can be perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise, and happy. And I want entire world to be perfectly healthy so that we can have the peace for the whole universe. From that, as a single-handedly, I've been making it, am I doing my duty, keeping a very low profile, and as such. This is the subject which I want everybody to remember so that there is uniform wisdom throughout the world for every student and is free for everyone. I do not want any education to be priced, and I do come from a economically background, from illiterate family, and I do feel the privilege for education is for every human being. It should be free, not for the rich, not for the privileged, not for the influential, not the politically rich or other class. I want the poorest of the poorest lot should also get the same wisdom which is required irrespective of whosoever it is. But I keep it in mind very clearly, this kind of education is only meant for people who are intelligent, who want to make the world peaceful place for the benefit of everything. It's not for people who are interested in name, money, fame, etc. For them, this education will not be of anything. Someone who wants the world to be a place for heaven for everyone, these are meant for them, and for them it is free. I'm thankful to a couple of things which have helped me do things much easier. YouTube is one of them, Quora is one, and there are many organizations who do things for the love of humanity. Now with this question I come to repetition of the last. The 7 parts of integrated education was the last, and applied spiritual science was coming from that, and I'm making it very clear. Divine mathematics is Devyang ratio, Devyang sequence, Devyang infinity, and with that only we can answer entire from universe right up to DNA level to atoms, elements and molecules is the same. Education is everywhere, and that is what I am trying to show with the scientific evidence. Now this is a picture also I've shown. This is 7th is the most important. First, divine mathematics of the zero, and everything which is uniformly made is made of 7 parts. Earth is 7 parts, Antariksh is 7 parts, heaven 7, 7 days, etc. That is beauty. Second thing, I am also making it a nervous system. This just to add one thing to the last video that I particularly making. Posterior part is sensory component, middle is evaluation, and the front is a motor. But this is also made of 7 parts. You have the sense organ and sense nerves as the first concept which I talk. Eyes and so-called visual tract, the sensory nerve, ophthalmic nerve. Second thing is the sending tract with which the information goes to the brain. In the posterior part is the 2 parts which are sensory in component. Posterior sensory lobes are 3, you have occipital, temporal and parietal, the posterior part only 3 along with cerebrum. Then you have the insular cortex in the middle, which is uniformly connecting both sensory and motor in between, which takes involuntary. This is where super consciousness or self-realization helps you to realize that it becomes a center. Then you have perfect thing, and that makes the 8 to 10 very clearly. Then you have motor planning, programming and execution lobes of the brain, which are in the front part. Then you have motor descending tracts, and then motor peripheral nerves. So these are the 7 parts. Again, they are well defined. Now this particular picture I'll show, this is what is taught to everybody throughout the world: ascending sensory, evaluation, descending motor, and this is something which, and this is not as correct as what I have shown in the last. And this is a picture where I added very clearly there is something beyond, and that is for higher consciousness. I can be in tune with universal consciousness, produce 8 hertz throughout my brain. At the same time, there are pacemakers in the heart to make sure everything is supplied. There are pacemakers in the digestive system for all the requirements of the homeostasis, and for the delivery of the child in the uterus itself, you have pacemaker. Those 3 things are ignored by everybody. Without that, whole system cannot effect efficiently, and I am very clear on that part. Now come general perception. There are only 8 lobes in the brain. This is what everybody is talking about. This is what I have read from school, from today right up to this. Throughout the world, you go into Google, you go into perception, you will find 8 lobes only. And what are those 8 lobes? You have anterior motor cortex, as I told you, you can see very clearly. You can see the parietal, you can see temporal, and you can see occipital. These are the four pairs which is there. 2 into 4 is there. But one thing which is missing in this particular thing, you cannot see a central insular cortex pair which is missing in this, and nobody talks about that at all. And whole thing from school, college, university, everywhere. I've been a student, I've been a researcher, I've been a teacher, I've been a professor, I've been a writer. I have a complete experience of how the education goes. We are only talking about something which is copycat. Nobody had even desire to think whether we are teaching rightly or wrongly. That has been my problem since my school days till today. When I say this is not, but everybody says this is what is taught, this is what you have to do. But that is the most moron way of approach in education. Copycat education does not help anyone. We need to think for the good and bring out the wisdom, and research should be done on a subjective, objective evaluation, not a copycat find fault with already existing and then try to do something. That is not research. And I want the research scholars to have an experience and then get into research and be the subject by themselves. Otherwise, you cannot really produce the results which are there. I have been able to do because I opted for PhD after an experience of Kundalini Yoga, which I experienced within the body, and it's helped me in the last 30 years to come to this level as a genuine research scholar, which can help me and help everybody. I'm sharing only my experience. It's not a copy of anything else. Now come to that. How did I perceive the 10 lobes is a big question mark, as I've written very clearly. I had a simplified Kundalini Yoga initiation in 1991. I experienced the movement of Kundalini chakras, nadis within the body, and then experienced ascension A to Z completely within myself, and which was totally different from all the books which I have read. I think that brought the change. There is something more than what people have spoken. People have been talking of something, copying each other to say what can be sold and given. And I can tell you the books I read when I was in medical college from 1968-69, they were 1,000 times better than the books which are available. Today, because of copyrights, you are playing with the system completely. And result of that, we are giving diseased things not to be covered in plagiarism. And that is also again defective. Plagiarism is definitely, but I do agree my PhD work, when put for similarity index, it was 0. Nobody believes. But I have never copied anything from anything. It's very true. They will take it. But somebody who has given it does not mean you have to repeat it. That's the reason I say you do it original, you'll have something very different, and you put it that way, there will not be similarity index at all. And I'm sure all my work, there is no similarity because nobody has done it before me. And that is the reason I can always say who did it, because nobody has done it. And that's it. So that's how I did it. Now the question, as this is a picture of 6 chakras. Now I am making it very clear. Everybody talks of 7 chakras, but such Chakra Nirupana talks of only 6 chakras, not 7 chakras. And the information given in the book is perfect. I found the Sanskrit scripture of Sat Chakra Nirupana about 6 chakras, amazing. This is a picture of that, and Om is a one in Mandukya Upanishad, which is phenomenal. This is a picture which I had drawn in 1974. I think this is something which, when you move, nature helps you to move on with perfection. Now, ascending a stage, I have experienced that the Kundalini can move from outside, from Muladhara Chakra to Sahasrara, external. You can see the light around you. And I have experienced that way back in 1992 itself. And nobody said, you would say it's not. But nobody experiments. They want to only have the mind which is written in the book and work with that. They don't let nature even unfold its in secret. I am glad I had no idea of chakras, nadis, and other things before I was initiated. I was totally a novice. And as a novice, going and experiencing something has been amazing. And that's what I want everybody to go with the experience. Don't expect something which is going. Just enjoy it. Now I found that Bahar has got these books, everybody talks about it. There is a Annamay Kosh, there is a Pranamay Kosh, there is a Manomay Kosh, Vigyanmay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh. These are the 5 things, external thing, everybody talks about it. That is solid matter, vital breath, mind, intelligence, and bliss. Is absolutely external thing. Everybody can experience it. I have experiences, I know it. But going inside is something which is more important. And this is where inside goes. Annamay is outside, within that is Pranamay, there is Manomay, there is Vigyanmay, there is Anandmay. And within that there is Guhyam. Within that soul should get in. Only then you can experience the beauty of 10 chakras. That's what I'm talking about. I experience because I experience the Kundalini right inside my ventricles of brain. Once in the ventricles of brain, now I can see 10 dimensions, not 1 and 2. Length, breadth, depth, time, space. There are 10 dimensions, and I go by that, and I will be able to see because the soul is there in the ventricle, and that has brought the trend, and that is what helium is all about. This is what is the picture all about. And same picture has been beautifully given in same Satchakra Nirupana as internalization. That's why I find those Sanskrit scriptures unfortunately wrongly translated, because they wanted to sell only product which is acceptable to the idiots, not to the one who can think rationally and move on. And that's what I said. All the books were absolutely defective, and I make it very clear. Now come to the question of 10 major centers also I have explained. Now again, everybody is talking about 7 chakras. I said there are 6 as far as Satchakra is concerned. But I have experienced 10 because I associate them with the endocrine system and autonomic nervous system, which is the centralmost part of the autonomic nervous system itself. Now this is what is going to change from 8 to 10. It says autonomic nervous system, which is associated with autonomic nervous system, endocrine system, which is responsible for homeostasis. And I've experienced that 1993 itself within my body. I think that was fantastic. And that is what led me to go for Patanjali Yoga Sutra Ashtang Yoga to Das Yog, Akhand Yoga of 10 stages very clearly. This was a step-by-step approach, and which I did on my own and done a wonderful job. Now comes the question of internalization was something which is there, and this is something which is spoken about in Upanishads very clearly, that your soul is like your thumb, and that is what I have written in this Akhand. This is pi structure. When soul is moving, it is like a pi 22 by 7, that is 3.142857, and that is a structure which is talked about in Sat Chakra very clearly. This is structure how it goes around the shivling itself. I think that is amazing, but nobody has done that. You stock, but what it is precise, nobody had experienced. But I experienced that in 95, and that is what helped me to produce alpha frequency after opening the eye, because I was right inside with a calm and quiet state of Turiya, which helped me do that. And that has been a change in realizing they are not 8 lobes, they are 10 lobes. The central lobe is the one which needs to be understood. And now this is a background. With this background, we move on to the next stage. Now, this is a picture of the autonomic nervous system as done by all the scientists. You can see the cranial parasympathetic system on top associated with brainstem. Then you have the spinal cord, from which sympathetic system comes between T1 and L2, and that is also according to Divyank. The first thing, and then you have sacral parasympathetic system. All the three put together are the system, autonomic nervous system. These are the ones which make sure that we have a perfect life altogether. It centers around sympathetic and parasympathetic balance. And parasympathetic is to rest, digest and conserve energy, and sympathetic is mobilized when you need extra energy. I think that's the most important part, and that was the first thing which emerged from my PhD work. I realized the entire work I was doing was only autonomic nervous system, and that work made. This particular picture at the bottom is something which I added later, is not the usual part, but this is Muladhara Chakra, which is added later, which is ganglion impar. I think that's again something, but I am glad to say Best and Taylor had talked about ganglion impar way back in 8th edition of 1967 itself, but subsequently nobody talks about it. It's very surprising. Nobody talks of the coccygeal ganglion and end where both sympathetic chains and they merge together at the bottom, and there are about 45 ganglion on that, and nobody talks about it unless it is come to that stage that 45 ganglion emerge from 28, and that is Divyank, and you go to see all that one by one from my experience, so that we have every child, every student, every researcher has the uniform knowledge to work on, not idiotic research which I have seen throughout the world where Nobel laureates also failed miserably. Now come to the question of this. A picture I've seen. It is there internet and taken from internet, and you can see insular cortex right middle where cortex has been exposed, that is inside. That's it. Now you can see somatosensory parietal on top, the motor component. You see sympathetic, parasympathetic with insular cortex. I think this is the kind of research should make us think why these scientists have put this particular picture as such. And I think this particular work needs to be understood. And both sympathetic and parasympathetic are in the basal ganglia of midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata itself. And then the spinal cord, you have thoracolumbar and of course the sacrum, which makes it very, very clear. You're going to see as we move on. Now comes the question of vertebral columns. We have filled the brain. Now I say the vertebral column has got few important parts. You have cervical. There are 8 pairs of nerves, but there are 7 things because hyoid has been taken as a separate one, so 8, 16. Then you have thoracic, 12, 24 nerves. Then you have lumbar, 5, 10 nerves. Then sacrum, then coccyx as the last one, which is coccyx comes to this. And this is something which has made me understand. Unless that we understand this, you cannot understand Kundalini Yoga, you cannot understand experience. No use about talking about Kundalini Yoga and land up with psychosomatic disorders, Kundalini syndrome, without understanding proper theoretical nerve. Once you understand, you realize all the Kundalini is associated with sympathetic system only, adrenaline rush, rush, rush. All the complaints of that would be only panic attacks, nothing other than that. Sudden rise will not. So the balance of the cranial parasympathetic sacrum and the sympathetic three should be together as a calm and quiet, and that's what I'm showing this particular picture. Now the coming to the spinal cord. It's very interesting. Anyone who has seen would have known there are 10 rex laminae in the spinal cord, and this is a picture which is very, very clear, and this is something which neuroanatomists have done it beautifully, and this is where you see the posterior part. It is sensory. Motor is, you can see 3 sensory, 2 this, and you can see in the middle as a, you can call sympathetic or autonomic or lateral ganglia, and you're going to see the picture more in detail as I show, so that this is the kind of wisdom which every person should have. It is not for neuroscientists. I want every person for their own health, wealth, wisdom, happy to understand. Nobody is going to help anybody. Medical professionals are not helping the humanity at all. They are making them suffer because of iatrogenic problem or the medicines or other thing. It's a pathetic. Prevention is better than cure is something which I am a medical doctor, and I'm at this particular stage, nearing 74. I'm as perfect as 21. I've learned that only through diet, exercise, and proper thinking, and makes me better day by day. Now there comes the question of the spinal cord's reflex action. There are 3 you have sensory component backside, you can see motor, you can see in the middle, you can see the gray matter which has got sensory backside, autonomic lateral horn in the middle, and motor in the front. And that is exactly what people should understand, how the system works and how things work, and I'm showing that. And even the definition of reflex action I'm going to talk as we move on. Now the question is, the shape of this particular picture is very, very clear, and once you see this particular picture you will be surprised that Chakra Nirupana talks about it so beautifully 3000 years or maybe 5000 years back. Now this is a particular brainstem and spinal cord from which autonomic nervous system comes out. I am showing again. Now the comes to question of, now Tantra talks about Ida, Pingala and Sushumna Nadi, and this is exactly the structure which I have shown in the last picture. Left and right chains are the sympathetic chains, and vertebral column has got both parasympathetic, parasympathetic and the center for sympathetic all system, and all the 10 chakras are connected with the vertebral column only are the brain and spinal cord. I think that was the most thing. And this particular picture I have added right at the bottom to show this is what ganglion impar is, and that is Muladhara chakra. Now there comes to question of a Sat Chakra Nirupana talks about Sushumna Nadi, which is the vertebral column. Within that is Vani Nadi, with which subdural space flows. Then you have Surya Nadi, which is actually descending, ascending, you can call it tracts. Then you have Brahmanadi, the central canal, and you have a grey matter which is nuclear. And then internalizes central canal, the Antaratma or the soul should get in and rise from bottom right up to the ventricle. Only internalized people will be able to see the autonomic nervous system completely. Unless until autonomic nervous system, endocrine system becomes your friend and you can control it properly, only then you can be in tune with universal consciousness and yourself, not otherwise. And this is the information which changed my concept as such. Now I am talking with detail. This is where I am showing Sat Chakra Nirupana, the Sanskrit scripture, have all this information, not of the 7 chakras, 6 chakras, plus all this information so beautiful in that. How did they do it? 1000 times far ahead of any of the books I have ever read. It's Sat Chakra Nirupana alone. Now it's the same picture I'm showing in the concentration of the modern science, and you can see all the structures are this and systematically. I think that makes a real sense. This is science and spirituality coming together to make the wisdom. This is what divine design is, and that's why I'm very, very clear. People should see the beauty of ancient Indian Brahmins, Akhand Bharat Brahmins, who did a wonderful job on themselves and then produce the results through the direct hearing and perception. And I think I'm the only one, maybe after 10,000 years, maybe 5,000 years, who has experienced everything within the body and talking about yantra, mantra, tantra, ganit vidya, everything the way universe had decided. And for that you have to be a perfect human being in tune with that, with all the things where it's not even one artificial thing is taken. I do not even take medicine, forget about it. Now when this Vani Nadi is where you say Sigada, and this is a picture which is showed, this is where actually Ojas is converted into Tejas, and that is very, very intelligent. And this is where I make it very clear. Testosterone, it makes you give intelligence. But when testosterone is converted in estrogen in the brain, it gives you true super information, wisdom, intelligence, buddhi, intuition, universal consciousness comes only when testosterone is converted in estrogen and gone. And that is where women have more in the brain and men have to cut to the brain to get the best. And I'm glad I've done that, and this is as a result I've seen the Vani, and then I understand the beauty of the power of testosterone or reproductive hormones. Now the comes to the question of lower part sacrum sympathetic is very clearly in this particular thing, which gives you the power of ojas or the power of testosterone, estrogen, and as such. And women by and large have less testosterone, but they have estrogen and progesterone combination so beautiful that they can be enlightened during pregnancy very clearly, and they are into the right side brain much more efficiently than the men on the whole, and that is another beauty. Now same thing is converted into this. In this picture I'm showing it very clearly. Cervical has no lateral horns. Thoracic has got lateral horns. You can see T1 to 3. You can see in L2 to L3 also. But you can see the sacrum again lateral horns. And that is where from which autonomic nervous system or sympathetic nerves arise, or sacral parasympathetic or cranial parasympathetic as such arise. Now the whole thing is put into that. Now giving to this is the reason which made me understand that insular cortex is what is there inside the brain, where the whole autonomic nervous system as an endocrine system, everything is connected inside, and that is what made me give the world 10. And unless until you know insular cortex, which controls the autonomic nervous system, endocrine system, sympathetic system, parasympathetic system, also the Tantra Vidya, only then you can be a perfect, and that is where the 10 lobes make all the more important. And I think having explained that, I experienced that during my PhD work, and I continue to do that and improving day by day to make sure that I do not have a tachycardia, I do not have adrenaline chromosome, I do not have catecholamines, I do not suffer from dopamine excess or any of the things which are associated with tyrosine or those kind of things. I have a concentration of perfect amino acids to make sure acetylcholine is sufficient, testosterone is sufficient, everything is sufficient, so that I have bone structure, I have the muscle structure, I have the brain structure, everything perfect, as I can be a walking talking encyclopedia in every way, perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. And a person who's perfectly healthy is the only person who can be rich, because he does not need money. He has to be a karma yogi, he has to be bhakti, he has to be devotion, he has to knowledge. Once concentration is on actions, thoughts, intelligence and other thing, then you are rich. Otherwise you are not rich. You cannot buy anything with money, but without money you can't do also. But when you go after education, money will automatically come to you. This is natural law. World is seeing. It's a reward is in marks, reward is in that. And once your academic performance is good and you are standing out academically, only then you can be rich. on your own, because people will pay you anything you want. And that is what makes a person very, very clear. Having taken to this particular, I have summed up the whole thing in this particular thing. Okay, this is not 8, it is 10. And this is association is there in the spinal cord also. Both up and down become one, and then only you experience that. And once you experience that, only then you are in tune with universal consciousness. All the information is there. I think that should be more than enough. Now coming to this picture, the same thing, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna Nadi, you can see the brain, you can see its structures, you can see all the chakras, all what I spoke about Sat Chakra Nirupana is there in this particular picture alone. External consciousness, internal consciousness, and being in tune with universal consciousness with 10 lobes. 7 parts, 10 have made me recognize, and no wonder I am able to produce 8 Hertz alpha frequency throughout the 64 parts of the brain, with eyes open, with all the senses open, anywhere and everywhere, which has nobody in the world has done. As a result, I have spoken about neuroscience of the world. What they say is only 10.5 Hertz from posterior brain. When eyes are closed, mind is the rest of brain does not have. And when you open it, it is faster beta, which is not true. Which perfect is 8 Hertz throughout the brain, with eyes open, senses, and you are a walking talking encyclopedia. And this is where it is all about. And I think someone who understands it works on it, because you'll have to work on your own. Nothing, no teacher can give it to you. Everything is achieved only by your efforts. That's why I make it very clear. I'm not a Democrat, because democracy is compromising with majority rule. I am not a diplomat. I am not trying to help people, although they don't, because people like to be appreciated for something which they have never done. And I am not a dictator either. I do not want anybody to follow me. That's why I go on to say I am an autocrat, self-sufficient, self-realized, everything within me. And that is the experience I am sharing with, and I'm leaving it for the love of it, for the world to enjoy. It is up to the world to enjoy this as such. It makes sense to them, good. If it doesn't make sense to them, it is not at all my problem. But it's helping me to become better and better as I share more and more information, more clarity, more research. And I have brought it on to divine mathematics, Divyank, and also symbol, and also thing which there is no confusion whatsoever. I think I leave it at that. Thank you very much.